Hey guys, it is me, Jacqueline. For today's video, I have a book review for Wintersong by Jae-Jones. This book comes out on February 7th. It is a fantasy retelling. It is classified as a young adult novel. I would personally more classified as a new adult novel. I was sent this book in exchange for an honest review from the publishers through Netgalley, so I just want to thank them so incredibly much. I am very excited to do a review for you guys just because this was one of my most anticipated book releases. Like I said, this is a retelling. This is actually a retelling of The Labyrinth, which is a 80s movie. If you haven't seen it, highly recommend. But it's one of my favorite movies, so I was very excited when I heard this was a retelling. This book takes place during Germany during the 1800s, I believe, and in this book we follow our main protagonist, Liesel, who is 19 years old. She lives with her family, who is very musically driven with the exception of her sister. Now, like I said, this is a Labyrinth retelling, so one thing happens after another and somehow her sister actually gets captured by the Goblin King. So Liesel has to go and get her sister back. And that's all I'm going to say for a summary because I feel like that's really the only thing I really can say. After I finished this book, honestly, I was left so conflicted with my feelings regarding it. There are certain things or elements that I really enjoyed, but then there are other sort of elements that I felt were very underwhelming. Of course, I will lay out everything I possibly can as best as I can because yet again I am very conflicted. So it's like I loved certain things about this book, but then I didn't really enjoy certain things about this book. It's really hard because this was one of my most anticipated book releases and sadly it did fall short for me. I'm going to start out this section on a positive note and go on to the pros I had. So the first thing I did enjoy about this novel was the writing style. The writing in this book is beautiful. This is Jae-Jones' debut novel and I think she is such a great writer. Just the way that she composes sentences and really gets you as readers to understand what exactly is going on and paint that picture in your head. I loved how vivid she was. I loved how she sort of took us and weaved us through this story. You know, even through the harder parts in this novel, I still pushed through because of her writing style. The second pro I had was the mood we are presented with throughout this novel. I feel like certain times in certain scenes, there was just almost an uncomfortable feeling or a moment of hesitation, a moment of questioning what was going to happen next. And as we continue on, that sort of got me wanting to know what was going to happen next because since I was feeling sort of questionable or since I was wondering what was going to happen next, that got me to want to continue on. And I feel like the mood that we are presented with sort of goes hand in hand with this writing style. Yet again, the writing, the mood, I really enjoyed how this story was told. Going on to the last pro I had, which is probably the biggest pro, and that is the first half of this novel. I felt like this was really well done. Overall, this book has a slower pace, but for me personally, I felt like it made sense towards the beginning just because a lot was happening. Yet again, it has a slower pace, but we are being introduced to this world, we're being introduced to our characters, including the Goblin King. Going on to the cons, I feel like the second half of this novel was lacking. I felt like the plot for the second half of the novel just didn't really go to places I wanted to go to. In a way, almost felt bored at some moments. I have to say though, even though I didn't enjoy majority of the last half of this novel, there were certain scenes that I very much did enjoy. And for me, I actually liked the last chapter. I know some people did, some people didn't. I liked it. I felt like it had me sort of anticipating more because she is coming out with a companion novel or a sequel. I'm not exactly sure what the second book is. I feel like a lot of the cons I had for this book were really because of the last half in this novel, but the next one I had was the characters. I liked these characters almost. I liked the idea behind them, but I felt like as we followed them along throughout the story, specifically with our main character, I just felt like she didn't really grow enough for me. Like, I was rooting for her. There were moments that I wanted her to sort of progress more, but I felt that she was a little bit flat. I don't know. I wished for more for characters. Speaking of characters, let's go on to my final con, which is the character interactions and specifically more that has to do with the romance. So I did not enjoy this romance, sad to say. I didn't enjoy it because, yet again, I felt that I didn't get enough from these characters, so it was hard for me to really root for the romance since I didn't really feel anything towards these characters. I felt like the beginning half of this book, yet again, I did enjoy it more than the second half of this novel, but I feel like the beginning half of this book had so much potential to really build up everything, but when it switched to the second half of this book, I felt like the characters, yet again, were very boring. I felt like the interactions weren't really enough for me. I mean, with our characters, we did get a lot more background in the second half of the book, which I very much appreciated, but I just wasn't really here for it. I just wanted more, and I don't really know how to explain this in a non-spoilery way. I feel like if you do read this novel, you might understand what I'm talking about, but I just expected a little bit more plot development, which could very much develop our characters even more. I was just a little bit disappointed with the second half of this novel. The final thing I feel like I have to talk about is the fact this is a retelling of Labyrinth. So for me, yet again, one of my favorite movies. I was very excited for this book, and that's why I was excited for this novel, and also I loved supporting debut novels. So I do have to say that even though this isn't exactly similar to the movie, I did appreciate the way that Jae-Jones handled sort of the labyrinth element and how she sort of depicted it. I feel like certain things that we were presented with were very well done, and I really actually enjoyed how she took the idea, like for example the Goblin King, and really ran with it, and I thought that was sort of well done. It's not exactly like the movie, so if you're expecting to really have a book that is the movie but in book form, that's not what you're gonna get, but I did feel like this is a retelling, but she really took it and made it her own. So that's all I have to say for Wintersong by Jae-Jones. Please let me know down below in the comment section what you thought of my review or what you thought of the book if you decide to pick it up, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!